Hi folks, Kim Schofield here. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm excited to be showing you some products from Hutson. These are new stamps and dies designed by Julie Ebersol. These were released in March. And I'll also be showing you how to create a faux plank or wood background, which you can see here under that first card on the right. So we'll be making 4 cards today and a tag, or 3 cards and a tag, so 4 projects. And here are the new stamp sets. So these were released in March. I saw them on Jennifer McGuire's, one of her videos, and just about went insane because these are the cutest things ever. And I bought all of them. I bought everything in this release. So you have this great new fortune cookie die. You can see that here. It's what it looks like when it's cut out. And it also includes a die for the sentiment. So this is the little part that goes inside the cookie, and it's where you can stamp your fortune. Oh my gosh, can you even stand it? It's the cutest thing ever. And then there's a whole set with fortunes that you can use. And then there's the So Matcha stamp set. So cute with matching dies. And then the Wasabi stamp set, which is all things sushi. Yes, please, with the matching dies. Okay, come on, it's fantastic. So I'm stamping everything, just about. So I've almost all of the stamps, the images set up in my Misty, and I'm using some VersaFine black ink, which, by the way, I ended up using Copics to color my images, and the VersaFine is not the best ink to use. It's better to use Memento ink. So do as I say, not as I do. I love the VersaFine because it gives amazing, crisp black images. It stamps beautifully. Look at that. It's gorgeous, but not Copic friendly. So if you use Copics, you just have to be very careful about not hitting the edges so that you don't get any smearing. So I did 2 sheets from both sets, the So Matcha and the Wasabi sets. So I've got 2 sheets of that, and I stamped most of those images. Now with the Wasabi set, you're going to die. You're going to die. You have to get this set because it also comes with solid images. So what? You can color the images. Look at that. Can you even stand it? So I am using Distress inks to stamp and fill those in. You might have to stamp twice because Distress ink sometimes beads up on acrylic stamp. So either stamp it twice or use archival. Either one works fine. So you can see here just filling that in works like, and because it's acrylic, you can see through it if you want to stamp twice. It's really simple to line it up. And look at that, instant coloring. Love it. Oh my gosh, there's chopsticks. Yes, please. I can't even stand the set. It's so cute. I was out of my mind crazy. I just love it. There's so much you can do with it. And the sayings are fantastic. I absolutely love it. I even had a friend over actually, and she said, oh my gosh, you have that set. And she spent like a couple hours stamping everything and die cutting everything so she could take it home. Seriously, best set ever. So here I am coloring up my shrimp on top of my sushi. Fantastic. So I'm going to finish coloring everything in with my Copics, which I've done here. I've colored with Copics. I've colored with the solid images, and I've die cut everything out. And I just keep everything kind of in a coffee filter here, just in one place, because I really, at this point, wasn't really sure what I was going to make, except that I needed to have everything. So now I'm going to show you how to make this kind of faux wood background. I don't know why I had this in my head as being something that was kind of Asian, but I did. And I'm starting out with some wood grain cardstock from Tim Holtz. And then I have some Distress ink. This is tumbled glass. So very, very pale ink. And I'm just putting, not ink, paint. I'm putting some of that paint out of my craft sheet, picking it up with my brayer, and just very lightly going over the wood grain cardstock. So this means, because it's wood grain, it's got texture, all of that blue paint is going to sit on top. It's, you know, there might be a few places it sinks down into that grain, but for the mostly that paint is just going to sit on top of that texture. And so you can see that now that it's dry. And now I'm going to come in with some Distress ink, color over the paint. The paint will resist the Distress ink, but all of those little nooks and crannies created by the wood grain cardstock is going to get colored with this distress ink. And so that I'm using hickory smoke for that. And you can kind of see you get this a mixture of the blue, and then that gray is going to be down in all the lines of the wood grain. And then all I did was cut some strips of paper into narrow strips. And I apologize, I'm off camera here. So all I'm doing is taking these narrow pieces of paper and cutting them into random sizes. I'm not measuring anything, it's just random. And then I'm going to go around the edges with black soot. So this is important because it's putting that ink around all of the edges of these little tiny pieces. That's what's going to make them really stand apart and look like separate little pieces of wood once we put it all back together. So it's a little time consuming, but not much. And the end result is really nice when you get all those little pieces lined up together. Really creates a very interesting background. And by the way, you can also do it just with, you know, any kind of leftover designer paper. So I also did some just with some white paper, and all I did was cut it down into the little pieces and then do the ink around the edges. So I'm using some stick-it adhesive just so I have basically a sheet of adhesive to now put all these pieces down and create my wall. And so it's kind of like bricks, right? I'm just putting down a few pieces, making sure those lines, you know, I don't want everything stacked up. I want it irregular, right? I don't want the lines all lining up. So you can just take those little pieces out and start creating your wall. And I'm just going to use all of those blue pieces that I have, and then I used a die cut to cut out this circle. And that's going to be now kind of the holding place for all of my little images. So I have my bamboo cut out, I have my two little ladies, and I'm popping them up with foam tape. It's so cute. This is the most darling set. And I just love that background for these Asian themed images. So I've got my little umbrella, and I did put the bamboo down flat, so I'll have a little bit of dimension there. And then I've got my little girl holding the umbrella, and then I think I ended up not putting anything in her other hand. So ignore the background of this card because I totally changed it. This is what I was going for, and then I decided, yep, no, I don't like that. And I completely changed my mind. So I've got a 5x5 card here. I ran through a smaller piece of cardstock just through an embossing folder there to create a little bit of texture. And now I'm using some fun foam for some dimension. And I'm using my new Wendy Vecchi Perfect Card Adhesive because it is fabulous adhesive. And so now this really just gets, you know, this becomes the focal point on my the focal image there on my card. And then I'll go ahead and add my sentiment, which actually I cut into two little strips. So I think this is stacked in the set, but I ended up cutting those two sentiments apart. And it's so cute. Love this stamp set. And so I'm just tucking those under one of my little girls, and this card is just about done. And so we'll use that faux plank background on my other two cards, kind of to create a die cut as well. So let's go on to the next two cards here. So here you can see there's that faux wood background, faux plank background with the plain cardstock. And I just have a black top folding card and a strip of red cardstock. So now I have taken a whole bunch of the sentiments from the Good Fortune stamp set and just lined them up. And I'm using Versamark ink. And Versamark ink you can use with embossing powder, or it actually, if you're using on a darker cardstock, it just becomes a tone-on-tone ink. So I'm not going to emboss anything. I'm just using this ink to stamp the words all over this piece of cardstock, and it kind of becomes like a piece of designer paper. Very subtle. And so I'm going to use my heat gun to dry that ink because that ink does stay wet for a long time. And so you can just see that it's very subtle in the background. So now I want to bring in a little bit of gold. to my card because I've got this black and red going on, and I want to have some gold in there. So I'm using that same Versamark ink. It's from Simon Says, and inking up those edges of my little square, and then I am dipping the edges into gold embossing powder. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat set that until everything melts. And so this gives me just a little bit of glitz, a little bit of that gold accent on the card, which would be cute too if you used a strip that went along the back of the kind of that red piece of paper that I stamped on. A little gold strip down there would be nice too. And now that I kind of wish I'd thought of that before. So I am working actually on the Tim Holtz glass mat, which is awesome. I love it, but that glass does heat up a little bit with the heat tools, so just be careful about that. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment on a circle that I've die cut. And then this one I actually will emboss with the gold embossing powder. And I think it says, thank you so much. Come on, fabulous. That's so cute. These are all so clever. I love them. Oh no, you are soy special. That's what it says. Sorry, you are soy special. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my card together, and I'm just going to put my piece of red cardstock down the side. So see, wouldn't a little piece of gold right under that red, that would have been good. I wish I'd thought of it myself, but I didn't till just now. I might have to go back and add it. So I'll go ahead and put my little square here where I do have that gold embossing powder, and this is almost like a little, kind of like a little table almost. And now I'll put my sushi on, which is so cute. And again, doing some different layers. So some of it will be flat, and then some I have popped up with foam tape. Good little sushi pieces. I love them. And what a great card. And, you know, for anyone who like loves sushi, it's fantastic. And then I'll go ahead and add my little circle sentiment just tucked under the bowl. And so my second card is very similar. Exact same idea, only I stamped some of the sushi images on my red cardstock, and then I used some different pieces there with a different sentiment. And so my red piece is going to go across the bottom now instead of, you know, from top to bottom. And my other sentiment, oh, I can't remember which one I have on the other one. I think "You Maki My Day." Yeah, that's what I used. So I stacked this. I actually cut this sentiment in half. "You Maki My Day" is all on one line, but I cut between "You Maki" and "My Day" so I could stack the sentiments and have them fit on the circle die cut. And I did the same thing with the gold embossing powder around the square, and then the gold embossing on the sentiment. So now let's move on to our last project, which is a tag using the fortune cookie die and the Good Fortune stamp set. So I die cut my fortunes out of just a craft colored cardstock. This has a little bit of texture to it. And there are two openings there. And now I am taking the little tiny word that says pull, stamping that in red on the top of my little fortune. So that's where, you know, when you insert that into the fortune cookie, that little portion will be sticking out. And then you can go ahead and add your little fortune. And there's a ton in here. I don't even know how many. There's a lot. So I have "You Make Life a Little Sweeter" stamped in there. And then this is how it fits inside the cookie. Isn't it cute? Oh my goodness. So now to create my tag, I've die cut a large red circle. And I did use some distress ink and my blending tool to just give a little bit of dimension to the cookie. So where the seams would be on a fortune cookie. And I've got a craft tag, and I'm just going to use some of these sushi images and my distress ink, this is Gathered Twigs, to just randomly stamp these images in the background. So just kind of making my own design there. And I usually stamp each image 3 or 4 times. And there are some variety of sizes of images. So there's some larger ones. And these, I'm just using the outline, by the way. So there's some solid images within the stamp set, but I just use the outline ones and stamp those repeatedly. And there's some smaller ones you can fill in with as well. And then I'm going to do that same technique of using my embossing ink. Forgive my head there. Probably trying to find it in my pile of inks. And this is the bamboo stamp from the So Matcha stamp set. And I'm just stamping that repeatedly. So it's kind of giving me that nice bamboo background, but again, very subtly, more like a tone on tone. And you see that more as that ink dries, as it dries into the paper. That's where you can see the design a little bit more. So now I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. And again, I'm just using some fun foam. This has some tape on it, or a sticky side, which makes it easy there to add that onto the paper. And I'm just going to cut off the excess. And now I have a perfect spot for my fortune cookies. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this one down, and you could put 2 fortunes. Really, you could have one come. I just used one, but you could do both. Give your friend not 1 fortune, but 2, and then trying to decide which of those openings I want to use. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to create a little channel, and this is just so that my fortune cookie, or the fortune rather, doesn't slide out of the cookie. So all I'm doing is cutting some very thin strips of foam tape and putting that on either side of the fortune. And that just makes it so it slides easily and it's not going to get lost. And then I'll go ahead and add foam tape to the rest of the fortune cookie and everything will just get popped up rather. Taped down, popped up. And that just about finishes off the projects for today. Check the description below for links on where to buy these products. Everything is from Ellen Hutson. Great products, fantastic release, absolutely love it. Thank you, Julie Ebersol, for this wonderful release. I love it. Thanks so much and happy crafting.